Dr. Nageshwara has to present his presentation on the complications of device closure and their management.
Thank you, Dr. Raghu. I thank Dr. Srinivas Kumar, my friend, and other colleagues of organizing committee of this ACVS. In the next 15 minutes, I will be just going to highlight a couple of issues regarding the complications of the device closure. I am sure that you are all well versed with closure of various complex atrial septal defects, ventricular septal defects, patent ductus arteriosus, and other communications like aortopulmonary window, rupture of valsalva. Probably you have more experience than me in that, fistulas, tunnels, and paravalvular leaks. So,
Dr. Nageshwara, you can go. We are running ahead of the time.
Yeah, these are all various devices which you can see. We are going to deal with some of those things. Why the complications are generally common? Because of the larger sheaths, inappropriate hardware selection. Smaller patients, it's proven that less than 10 kilograms are more risk for the interventional procedures. Complexity of the procedures, inexperienced operator, associated comorbid conditions, and newer devices are devices under evaluation. These are some of the issues. If you look at the complications, can be summarized briefly into early or immediate, late or delayed, hemodynamic instability, device malposition, device embolization, tachyarrhythmia, bradyarrhythmia, thromboembolism phenomena, interference with valves and surrounding structures. Whereas the late complications are more concerned, because early complications you can deal and you can see the complication, whereas the late complications you won't be able to see them because patient will be lost to follow up in most of the times in our scenario. So complications like erosions, late arrhythmias, migration of the devices and obstruction to other structures are very, very important. I feel that late complications are more important than early or immediate complications. If you take the larger sheath which can damage the vein or cardiac structures, it can produce air embolism or thromboembolism. Hemodynamic instability may be due to larger sheath, a formation of arteriovenous looping, arrhythmias, device embolization, pericardial effusion, and valvular interference. If you look at here, you can see this is one of the method of VST device closure, transeptal method. And the mitral valve is acutely under stress here, severe MR. This baby has got actually hemodynamic instability, and we realized that immediately and rectified the problem. This is another case actually myself and Dr. Shakil Qureshi was doing. You can see the big heart postoperative residual VST and forming the loop here. Patient did not tolerate the procedure and there was a lot of hemodynamic instability, and later on we had to convert the patient into perventricular closure. Air embolism is very, very important, dangerous. You can see here air embolism, this is all air in the main pulmonary artery going into LPA and RPA here. Why this air embolism comes? Because you typically take a pediatric patient, ASD patient in the evening where dehydrated, RA mean is 0 or lesser than 5, and you want to do transesophageal echocardiogram without general anesthesia. These are the typical scenarios why the air will be sucked from the larger reused sheaths where check valve is generally it is leaking and absent. So adequate hydration, check the RA mean before you take the above 8 French sheath, and we have to prevent the Valsalva maneuver during TE, otherwise alternatively you can take the general anesthesia. Lack of check valves and improper de-airing is one of the thing, and procedure during odd hours, that's a known factor of these kind of problems. Device deformity, you can see this is one of the major issue during the procedure. You can see the cobra hood, various types of deformities you will be seeing. So it is a concern that you won't be able to deploy properly here. You can see here hourglass deformity here, and this is a cobra type of deformity, wine glass, various types of deformities you may see in that. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to retrieve the device and make sure that flatten the device properly and then reshape it. This is one of the bad practice that we put the device in the kidney tray without properly actually pulling with the arterial forceps. Then you try to load the device, then deformation is quite common. Inappropriate sheath is one of the thing. You take a long sheath, if the recommended sheath is 11 French, if you take a 10 French, device deformity is quite common. Device embolization, improper assessment, inadequate size, improper position, floppy rims, abnormal anatomy and tachycardia, these are some of the issues. This is one of the small child actually, it was not recognized by one of my colleague, where screwing was actually while reloading and redeploying, screwing the retention screw was unscrewed actually. As soon as he deployed the LA disc, the device was embolized. Because it's a small child, the child underwent a surgical closure. These are just before the surgical closure, just before the discharge, our technician was doing the echocardiogram, patient developed palpitations, and then suddenly device got embolized. We had to cancel the admission, keep the patient in stabilization, and then we had to retrieve the device. You can see the floppy rims there, probably the floppy rims, aneurysmal tissue here, which probably caused more of tachyarrhythmia in this particular patient. So we were at the stage, the amplage septal occluder embolization, various reasons. One is arrhythmia because of the floppy rims, which can be a trigger for the arrhythmia, or overstretching, aneurysmal type of septum. This is one of the cases you can see improperly positioned by one of our fellow that particular time. As soon as we deployed the device, it immediately instantaneously migrated from the left atrium through the inflow, outflow, and then stuck at the isthmus zone here. So these kind of probably devices can be easily retrieved using a gooseneck snare here. Whereas the earlier I had shown you that the devices which migrated to the embolized to the left atrium or the right side of the structures, technically very much demanding, those can be snared using the gooseneck snare as well as bioptome. In difficult cases, a large device, small baby, probably it's better to send them for the surgical retrieval and then closure. Coming to the ADO1 embolization, you can see this is one of the large duct, almost like a tubular ductus arteriosus. And then we were quite happy with the device position that particular time. But immediately within 24 hours, we could clinical auscultation found continuous murmur, and the device is migrated to the embolized into the descending aorta here. So here we thought this is a favorable position to retrieve it because of the retention screw is facing it down caudally. Then we had to take a sheath, and then sheath called as the sheath technique will come in the paper short time, and then we could successfully retrieve the device. So with this method we could retrieve so far 3 devices, 3 duct occluders in various regions which was actually embolized. So after that again we had to reuse the same device and then redeploy the thing. What about chronic embolization? This is one of the delayed embolization. Here you can see that already some amount of tissue is formed here, and these are the cases may be very difficult if they embolize into the distal pulmonary artery. Probably surgical option is the safer. Sometimes if the embolized duct occluder is in unfavorable position, probably catheter manipulation, here you can see that we can make it into favorable position and then probably try to retrieve the device. Here we could try to retrieve the device because of the device got clogged with a lot of blood material and tissue. We could not retrieve even into the larger sheath from the femoral artery. Whereas Raghu was telling that ADO2 embolization, I have experienced 3 ADO2 embolizations and 3 successfully we could retrieve. This is one of the patient where ADO2 664 was being deployed here. As soon as we deploy the device, it's instantaneously embolized into the pulmonary artery. Some of the membranous aneurysms, sometimes we may underestimate the size of the ventricular septal defect either by echo or by the angiocardiogram because of the floppiness of the aneurysmal tissue. These are some of the cases. So those cases probably we can easily retrieve ADO2 because of its low profile in nature, 144 double braid wide without any Dacron material are there. Even you can retrieve with the a guiding catheter safely here, which as you can see here. Whereas sometimes you may find difficult to retrieve. This is one of the case you can see wrongly we selected a cable. One of our colleague, you can see the cable which is old cable used, and we could not deploy the device actually. There was no deployment properties of the cable. In spite of that, then we have to actually retrieve the device. While retrieving the device, we could actually almost the device came out of the retention screw here, and then we tried to retrieve with various mechanism, but unfortunately we were not successful in this particular case to retrieve the device even from the jugular vein with the snare, bioptum, everything we got the device because of the 40 size device, and which was not possible. Improper position is one of the complications of the device closure. You can see the simple ductus arteriosus, and we thought we'll deploy the device here. You can see the aortic end in a ADO2 is actually aortic disc is too much of rocking motion is there, which was causing hemodynamic some amount of obstruction to the aorta. Then we have to reposition using the snare and then the support with the pigtail catheter in the aorta here. Interference with the valves, as I told you, one of the case I had shown you, this is one of the patient where we deployed the VST device here. Patient developed the hemodynamic instability. Then we realized that the device is part of the mitral valve leaflet is entrapped by the device and then causing the mitral regurgitation. We had to remove the device in that particular case. Aortic valve is quite common, especially when you are doing the membranous VST, either ADO1, ADO2, muscular or asymmetrical. Even nowadays we are not using. So one should be really careful when we are doing the case. Here you can see the device is touching the aortic leaflet and there is a trivial degree of regurgitation. I don't think more than trivial degree of aortic regurgitation we need to accept in any circumstances in a native aortic valve. So late complications, that's what the major concern. There are a lot of cases reported across the world, erosions, and close to 50 cases are reported, and predominantly there may be more cases because of the last follow-up. Even we don't have follow-up data for all patients. We have only close to 80-85% of AST follow-ups which are available for 3 years. Beyond 3 years, it's very difficult. Recently, I inquired one patient. There was a sudden cardiac death was there in one of the patient after 3 years. So these are all the concerns that erosions may be one of the problem, which probably when you have the device which is actually touching the aortic torus aorticus from the LA side or RA side, you may anticipate this kind of erosions, late erosions. Probably wrapping around the aorta with a little bit of oversize maybe avoid erosion or prevent erosion. In India, I think it's grossly underreported. One of personal communication with one of the pediatric cardiologists, they have 2 erosions, and both the cases they had to do surgery and remove the devices. So this is a major concern. So whenever there is a deficit retroaortic rim, deficit anterior rim, probably that is a deficit right upper pulmonary venous rim, there superior erosion, superior perforation of the right atrium is possible. Here aortic erosion either into LA or into RA is quite possible. So late complications of the VST device closure, especially a membranous VST device closure, complete outblock. Early complication, if it is within the hospital, probably we can rectify the problem. We can give steroids for high dose of steroids for a few weeks, and there are case reports showed that the complete heart block was quite transient and reversible. But some of the cases where in the literature which have shown that it's quite significant, even sudden cardiac death was noted. This is one of the ECG. Fortunately, we did not come across so far CHB, but we don't know when we are going to get that kind of problem. This is one of the complete heart block followed by the VST device closure and successfully which was treated with the steroids and improved. So there is a very good paper by Gunther Fuscher and Bob Anderson way back in 1960s where conduction path abnormalities and in relationship with the membranous septum. Here you can see the published data, little bit of oversizing here. Here it is more or less good, not much of oversize, but in spite that there was a complete heart block noted. So our own Indian data from 4 centers, that is from Ahmedabad, our center, Jaydeva Institute and Dr. Dalvi from Mumbai showed that there is some kind of incidence of a heart block seen here, and this is quite significant in this particular group here. And there is another Jairangana series, there is one heart block, but most of the times what we observe is newer development of right bundle branch blocks are very common in this particular aneurysm or membranous type of patients. This is one of the late complications of the ADO2. ADO1 late complications are bit unusual, and I did not come across anything except one late embolization of the device. One of the patient underwent cocoon device deployment, and after 3 months they detected that the device was embolized. But for that I did not come across any kind of such kind of situation. This ADO2, we actually deployed ADO2s in 2009 and 10. After that we stopped. You can see the left pulmonary artery is quite significantly narrowed here, and you can see there is a lot of turbulence, and this patient actually developed left pulmonary artery stenosis over the period of time, and we had to do cardiac cath and CT angio. He is actually waiting for the surgery. So to summarize, complications of the device closures are quite underestimated in our community, and early complications within the hospitals are manageable, whereas late complications during follow-up or most of the times the last 2 follow-ups are very important and more alarming and dangerous. So all patients who underwent a device closure needs a very close follow-up, at least till the safety point of view. Thank you very much.
Sir, excellent review of all the complications which are anticipated. But just I wanted to say one case of ours, actually the ASD device closure, Amplash, that it was not collapsing to the disc shape after the deployment, and it is a dumbbell shape was persisting, but it is quite stable, and the residual shunt was quite less. So we thought of we can leave it, but because it is not taken the proper position, we sent for surgery. And in the surgery, it is an astonishing thing that is the tag of the tissue is exactly at the neck of the device, and which is preventing the collapsing. We are not able to remove the device also. So surgically it has to be removed, and then only the device was separated and done. Thank you very much, sir. I think
I think that's very important. Whenever there is an aneurysmal tissue, we often overestimate the size, thinking that we'll oversize the defect. So aneurysmal tissue, our policy is to do balloon sizing and take the proper measurement. When you oversize it, the dumbbell shape will persist, and then it will cause a problem. That's probably one of the reasons. There may be several reasons, but this is one of the mechanisms.
Yeah, one comment. Congratulations on a very lucid presentation, Dr. Venkateshwar. Regarding the complete heart block, you showed the Bob Anderson's diagram, and that is a wonderful diagram which shows the conducting system. So when you put the perimembranous device which has got a polyester and the radial strength is very high, and especially if you oversize, the compression of the conducting system is invariably there, and that's how most of the people in the world literature, the complete heart blocks incidence is quite high. Whereas in our data, 80 patients where we use the ADO2, even with the septal aneurysm, so if you see the central lobe is not, even if it is snugly fitting, since there is no polyester material, it's a short one, the compression of the conducting system is much less. Yes. So as I showed previously before you came, except in a Gerbude defect, none of the patients will require the temporary pacing. And out of 80 we have followed for 2 years, none of them have developed a complete heart block. Basically, it is the device and how much compression it is causing on the conducting system which goes across the ventricular septal defect, and that's the most important. I think the ADO2 is an answer for a very small perimembranous VSTs with septal aneurysms, and I think we have had almost no conducting defect.
I agree that we have close to 250 VST devices so far, of which close to 100 ADO2s retrograde. I think last year we published in JAC. None of the ADO2s actually developed the heart block. Even the right bundle branch blocks are very, very less because of the 144 wire without any Dacron material, polyester fabric there. It's a very, very soft device and can be easily accommodated as per the requirement of the aneurysmal tissue. That's correct.
Yeah. But
Delivery sheath that you have to go. For this, just 5 guiding catheter is used, whereas the regular device we are using a bigger sheath.
No, we described this actually 2009 and 2008 cath cardiovascular as well as JAC we published. Crossing onwards we do differently. The crossing we don't cannulate the ventricular septal defect. We cross wire only method. That means you take the thermo wire, you float it in the left ventricle and then cross it, and take the guiding catheter and take all precautions not to damage the conduction system. So I won't say that our results are much superior. Probably I am anticipating any person, any center can get the complete heart block. So we need to take all precautions to prevent a complete heart block in membranous locations.
if you have a large VSD, so what's the maximum size of the, because nowadays it's very common to close with the duct occluder, because ADO2, as we have discussed,
Yes.
the size is the limitation.
Yeah,
But there are instances where, if I remember, we have used one 20 by 18 also.
Correct.
So, do you think that these, because these people, what would be the size, what would be the limitation?
It is not only the oversizing of the device which causes shear stress on the conduction system. It is the eccentric device which has got a central waist which is 3 millimeter on either side of the interventricular septum. The conduction system is a sandwich. So ADO2 has got to 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter middle stump. It can be expandable because it's a trilobed device. So similarly with that principle, if you take a ADO1, that is the duct occluder, the interventricular septum will not be sandwiched between the two discs because ADO1 has got only one disc.
One disc.
So that's why now our trend is switched over to using ADO1 in most of the cases where the defect cannot be closed with the ADO2. So we can go up to even 18, 16 device also. Personally, I don't believe in closing a very large VSTs more than 16, 18 millimeter. Beyond that, probably the septal loss will be there. It's a purely individual opinion. So we can effectively, safely close these kind of membranous as well as muscular VSTs successfully, either with the ADO1 or muscular VST device.
Yeah, it is a perimembranous VST is a different cup of tea compared to the mid-muscular. Mid-muscular VST I have closed even with the 24 millimeter VST device, and that too with the post-surgical, with the severe pulmonary hypertension, I have made the fenestrations in order to avoid the, like a flap surgery what they do. So up to 24 also we can go.
But for a perimembranous, because that
No,
forms a major
perimembranous you cannot. It's for the mid-muscular I have gone up to 24.
Generally a large perimembranous VST more than 12, 14, retroaortic rim, aortic rim will be
with
very
beyond
little
12
bit,
it is not worth doing.
So I think perimembranous VST, a large like 24 and all, I don't have any idea, but safely you can close 14, 16 up to
14, 16
No,
millimeters.
I said only mid-muscular, not the perimembranous.
Not